Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Weena. I'm a writer, educator, and training and development professional. And on this channel, we talk about books, literature, teaching, and also professional advice for youngsters like me. So hi, today I wanted to talk about teaching post-panini because the past few months I've been teaching at the Department of Literature at De La Salle University, and I've also been teaching development communications at the College of St. Anthony in Bulacan. A lot of things about the teaching experience have really changed and shifted post-panini. To give you guys some context, back in 2019, I used to teach for end-run colleges, and I taught literature to degree students and also English as a second language to non-degree students. I feel like a lot of the students are coming back to face-to-face for the first time, and there's a big adjustment or a big shift, I feel, in what they need to do in terms of decorum and what they're used to in terms of structure in courses, and that presents a whole slew of different challenges basically. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, because as a young person who's trying to teach young people as well, I think this is something that a lot of teachers would be interested in talking about, and hopefully this can help someone out. I know a lot of you who watch this channel are taking your MFA or thinking of taking your MFA, and since, let's be honest, most people who take their MFAs also end up teaching, hopefully this will help some of you out in the future. So the first thing that I have observed, and probably this is the most overarching kind of observation or takeaway that I've gotten from the past few months, it's that number one, the college kids need structure. And by structure, I mean not necessarily being hard on them or tough on them, but dictating certain parameters of their learning experience in a way that is explicit and measurable. This sounds so basic, but I think it's something that we kind of take for granted, especially coming out of the Zoom learning world, basically. Back when everyone was learning on Zoom, the thing about that experience is that the structure was so embedded in the technology and the actual logistical aspect of it. For example, if the teacher was to break the students into breakout rooms, they really wouldn't have a choice. And so that sense of discipline was kind of enforced on them, but they weren't able to deal with it the way that adults normally come to terms with these things, which is that you develop your own internal locus of control, where even if you can talk really loud, you question, should I? Especially given that it could disrupt my other classmates' learning experience, it could disrupt the professor's momentum in talking and in kind of conveying the lesson to everyone, and just small things like that. So the way that I've found is the most helpful to do this is to be very explicit about things like classroom rules, how long an activity will run for, when the deadline will be, how many slides their presentation should be, and how many pages, how many words their paper should contain, and reiterating things that may seem like common sense to you as a teacher, but maybe for them, they need to be told. For example, one boo-boo that I made is that my first reflection paper that I assigned them to, I forgot to tell them it would have to be in MLA format, because being a creative writing major, it was just so implicit to me that of course it would be an MLA. But then I kind of forgot that some of these students are Bachelor of Science students, and I should have known as well because I was a BS student. Not bullshit. I was a Bachelor of Science student back in undergrad as well, and we used APA. So just little things like that to avoid confusion and to kind of set up the parameters of what the face-to-face learning experience will entail in terms of social sensitivity to other people and sensitivity to the context that they are learning within an institution. The second thing that I'd like to talk about is basically that you can't always be the cool prof. Back in college, I was the kind of person that if I love the prof, I'm super participative. Growing up, I was like, if ever I get the chance to teach and teach a subject that I love, I will 100% be the cool prof. I'll be the kind of prof that's don't sweat it, just do your deliverables and, you know, everything's gonna be fine. I wanted to be like the passionate prof, but here's the thing, you just cannot be the cool prof all the time. And I feel like this is something that I'd like to label the Gilmore Girls conundrum, where it's similar to when you have a kid. Sure, you'd love to be the cool parent all the time. It would be great to be your kid's best friend. But the truth is that there are a lot of things that your kid, or in this case the students, will need to learn that you can't impart to them by being the cool prof all the time. And one example here is that you also kind of have to let them know that their actions will have consequences. And one example I'd like to give is, for example, late papers or not turning in papers at all, and then asking for an extension with no reasonable explanation, or them just basically making up an excuse, like, for example, they broke their finger or their pinky toe or something like that, where it's reasonable and it's okay to ask for a medical certificate. It's okay to let them know, for example, that you can't really bend the rules this time, especially if there's no valid excuse. Or in the case of plagiarism, for example, you can't just always be the cool prof and be like, don't sweat it, like, you know, just turn in another paper, or you can get a do-over. Because it's also not fair to people who put in the work and who created a paper that was original and maybe not as like polished, but which had their effort and their original insights in them. So yeah, there are some lessons, I guess, that take a little bit of friction for the students to be able to learn. Next, I want to say manage your expectations, especially if you are teaching a subject that is not directly relevant to their field. So, for example, a lot of my students are BS Math students, and there's some engineering students as well. And I think because I'm someone who is kind of curious by nature, where even if something isn't directly related to my field, I will somehow find a way to find it interesting. Like, for example, back in college, we had like electives that were about things that just were not related to psychology at all, but I still found a way to find them interesting because I was curious about them and I wanted to know about them. But now I'm slowly kind of realizing that not everyone has that compulsion, and that's okay. I think there is kind of a base level of knowledge about literature, the humanities, and about how media and literature shape our Filipino cultural identity that they must know. And above that, I feel everything is a bonus. And I'm saying to manage your expectations because I, for one, am a very passionate person. I tend to kind of wear my heart on my sleeve, and when I'm teaching, I get very, very passionate about what I'm talking about. And sometimes it's hurtful and demotivating if your students don't share the same passion, or they don't seem to get what's so amazing about this essay or what's so revolutionary about this poem, and they have nothing to say about it. But then I feel like there's some room there for empathy and for, I guess, discussion as well with them. Like, why don't they find it interesting? Why don't they agree with what you're saying? Yeah, and so I feel like, you know, not all students have to be as passionate about what you're passionate about, but if they can kind of meet you halfway, where they learn those key concepts and those key skills that you need to be able to kind of consider this module a success, then that's okay. Number 4, always have a plan B. So there have been a lot of things this term that have gone kind of crazy, like transport strikes, holidays that are suddenly announced, schedules of school events, alternative classes that are mandatory or suddenly there. And I feel like it's good to always have a plan B. So whether that plan B is meeting your students online, having an asynchronous activity, having an alternative online event or paper, something that they can write about, it's always good to have that kind of backup. And I feel like in the past, things were simpler. If there's like some force majeure incident, okay, then no class today. But now I feel like there's this expected ROI from the semester that you can fulfill online or you can fulfill through a different activity. And so it's just important to take note of that and to always have kind of a backup. Or if you don't have like a session for that week, explain to them why. Like, what are they expected to do? Is it a research break? That kind of thing. And last but not the least, this is more about your stamina as a teacher. And now I'm slowly learning that the teaching process or the creation of materials process is coming very, very close to the process of content creation. I'm slowly realizing that most of my weekends now are spent like preparing slides for my lessons for the week to come. And I guess I would say that if you are in a situation where you can foresee the subjects you'll be teaching, this wasn't the case with me because I was hired basically 2 days before the term started. So I kind of had no choice but to develop materials as I went along. But if you have the chance to develop your teaching materials way in advance, I would suggest like doing batching of creation, basically, of content for your class, where you could do like 2 to 3 modules in one Saturday as opposed to going week by week, because it is very tiring and it will kind of burn you out. So yeah, pace yourself, and if you can, try to plan in advance, and it will really, really help you. The thing is that there is a syllabus and there is like a prepared sort of lesson plan, but when it comes to the actual PowerPoint materials that you'll be presenting, it's more of that you really need to prepare. And there are lots of things that you need to, let's say, borrow from the library or get scanned into PDF format. And those little things, although they seem like minute and like just logistical concerns, you know, that you wouldn't normally think of anymore, they take a bigger toll on you than you would think. So yeah, just be prepared for that, right? So I hope that this was helpful to all of you guys who are looking to teach or who maybe are already teaching and are struggling with the same things. If you want to teach in the future, or if this is something that is kind of relevant to you, and if you're currently struggling in how to go back to face-to-face teaching now that we are moving out of the panini mode of learning, let me know in the comments below, and I will catch you guys next time.